Hi everyone, Adrian Groenewald here, Me Vision Academy. It's great to be with you. We're handing out an award again today for successful leadership. It's a wonderful privilege to be here. We are mobilizing successful leaders across the world by countries, sectors, and levels. And we pull them into a leadership ecosystem where we're also driving a global improvement revolution. And at the forefront of that are our IAs, our improvement architects, mostly young people who are helping our current leaders succeed by giving them quality content and examples of successes and leading self, others, organization, society. So do go to thinklead.app and go and see what incredible content they come up with to help leaders expedite their improvement of self and their people, especially in an AI era. And that's why we have IAs doing this. So for me today, it's a privilege to have certainly an influencer in our society trying to make South Africa a champion place. I've got Ashraf Garda, who is the founder, Champion South Africa, and presenter of the National Pulse, SAFM. He's been in the broadcasting industry for a long time. Old hat, experienced interviewer, and certainly trying to make South Africa a better place. He was nominated by Dr. Louise van Rijn. So, Ashraf, welcome.
No, thank you. Thanks for the invitation. And there's a whole lot more thanks, I think, that I must also mention in a moment. Yeah.
It's absolutely our pleasure. I'm going to hand you the actual award, and then we'll ask you the question of what successful leadership means to you and what you've seen, especially as you start spotting champions in South Africa, which invariably are leaders in their own right. It's an award in recognition of successful leadership for Ashraf Garda, and it's at least for these points here. Obviously, it could be more, and it's probably is more. Founding the Champion South Africa movement, inspiring a nation to embrace the champion mindset, an impactful broadcasting career, shaping public discourse, continue to do that, advocating social good by amplifying stories of everyday heroes, promoting resilience and action for a better society, and finally, leadership that ignites hope and action, making you a true champion of positive change. And it's my honor as a co-founder of Me Vision Academy to sign it. For us, it's about a journey to best self, and you're certainly helping all of us do that. Ashraf, a formal congratulations.
Oh, thank you so much. Listen, this is a huge honor. I mean, all I can say already up front is, please, can I share it? And I'm sure you're going to say yes, right? Because I think, look, it's important. I think all forms of acknowledgement's really important, and we somehow take it for granted. So this, amplification of saying, hey, we see you, we value you, I think is important to me. And what it does really is it puts even greater emphasis on myself to say, hold it, find others like you who are just doing great things. So this is a great affirmation of like, hey, carry on doing the good things you do. So, I mean, thank you from your side, really much appreciated. And to Louise, who rather naughtily obviously put the nomination. I'm not going to reject it. Thank you very much, Louise. But then Louise is the type of person that if anybody has to nominate you, you'd want her to do just that. As a person to choose to recognize you, I mean, that's fabulous. So, Louise, thank you for that. But really, from my side, this is fabulous, and I will certainly share it because it does matter to me.
And also, Ashraf, you mentioned the sharing. We've got a lot of good happening in our society. Definitely more good than bad. But because the good is not shared enough, that's why we talk of sharers. Sharers are people who share improvements. It doesn't help you improve things, and you don't share it necessarily because maybe you'll think you're humble. Maybe you'll think, well, I don't want recognition for it. But the truth is, if you don't share it, you don't spread it. And then you don't inspire others to cause more improvement. And that's why we really believe in giving the recognition and also sharing improvements with the world. Tell us from your angle, you don't have, obviously you've been in a corporate involved like an SABC, although it's a unique kind of corporate. You've been engaged with organizations in your life, but you haven't had a normal sort of past, yet you're an influencer. So it'll be interesting to see what you think great leadership, successful leadership looks like. Tell us about it.
Yeah, I mean, I think you're right in the sense that I've worked within a big media giant like the SABC, and then obviously done lots of other things on my own. But I think one thing I've had the privilege of, whether it's interviewing people on air, on radio, or moderating or emceeing, World Living a Keynote, or of course the Champion South Africa project. And what that has done, as I'm sure you'll be aware of it, it has allowed me to get closer to people who are leaders and decision makers across the length and breadth of our country. And I mean, that is a huge privilege that, sometimes we take for granted. Now, last week I was at the National Dialogue. No, not one of the eminent persons, I should say, but certainly we're broadcasting from there. And I had two people come up to me, and they made the point of saying, we just want to tell you, we stop what we're doing every day at 3 p.m. to listen to you because you're that important to us. We go to the car, like the guy even said, when you start now, I'll go to my car to listen to you. And in that moment, you realize not so much being an influencer, but you do have influence, right? Like, it's like, wow, you're actually impactful in society. And that's magical. And I remember a while back when I was hosting a show, even then on SAFM, and we were going to Cape Town, and I said something like, we're going to Langa tomorrow. If you're around, come and say hi, right? And the next day I was at the Langa town hall, and this guy dropped me an email, and he said, you know what? You said you're going to be here in Langa. Now, I insist I have to see you now. Now, Adrian, before you think that maybe that was a threat, I never thought of it as a threat. I really thought of it as someone in need, okay? And I went outside and I met him. And of course, his need is exactly the type of needs that people have in our country every day. Issues about housing, issues about small issues or big issues that don't get resolved for like decades on end. It's just crazy, right? So he had some housing problem, and I was able to, in that moment, connect him to the relevant DG for the relevant ministry, because we were interviewing them on the day, right? And I hope something good came out of it. But the reason I relate that, because you see, that goes to the essence of leadership. Can you change lives? Leaders do change lives. Can you create opportunities for people, big or small, every single day of your life and of their lives? And if you're able to do that, then for me, that is the very essence of leadership. I mean, there's more than that, but those two stand out for me just immediately. So it's not like a high title person about some famous person. No, it's basic people, ordinary people who have actually extraordinary problems. And if leaders can solve the problems, then they are leading in their space.
So can you change lives? Can you create opportunities for people every day? That's leadership, up to a granular level, one-on-one, teams, an organization, a society.
Yeah, so I think the examples I gave is one. I mean, there's more, right? I mean, for me, I thought about this. I mean, leadership for me would be, one who is able to offer comfort to those in need of comfort. On the one hand, it is to be able to offer hope to people who are, hopeless, right, at that moment in time. It's to give direction to people that are directionless, to be able to assist them in finding their purpose when they have no purpose. But also significantly, it's to be principled in terms of who you are, and when you're part of a collective, how do you take the collective on that journey? And then significantly, I say, champion people build champion people. So in the same way, you can't really be a true leader if you're not investing time building other people into leaders as well, right? Mm-hmm. So, it's all of that and a whole lot more. But I think central to all of that is, yes, the ability to impact the people that you connect with, whether it's family, whether it's your surroundings, whether it's your community, whether it's your country. That really is leadership. Can you impact those that you've been fortunate enough to walk the same path with?
So it's interesting. If I just go on, can you change lives? That definition explains good and bad leaders, doesn't it? I mean, there's some really bad leaders who change lives for the worst. We can give many examples across the planet. Obviously, you would say, well, can you change lives for good, for the good, for positive impact?
You're right there. I mean, you're absolutely spot on about that. But I've often thought about it myself to say, but if a person like, for example, Hitler, that you give an example, and was he able to change lives? Yes, but then can he be really called? Can he be called a leader? So by normal definition of leading a country, then he's a leader, right?
Yep.
But you then fail to become a leader when you change lives for the worse. So although by normal definition you're still a leader, you're a lousy leader, but I'm actually wondering whether that title should then be dropped to say you've lost that right to be called leader. So in fact, you're not a leader.
Yeah, I mean, it's a valid question. But if I'm a doctor, I'm always a doctor, whether I'm a good doctor or a bad doctor, whether I'm a good teacher or a bad teacher, I remain a teacher. So I guess you do remain a leader, but man, we've got too many lousy leaders. We've got too many leaders who are not improving society as they ought to. Any other comments on leadership? What's your message to leaders to be successful? Go out there and change lives for the good. Great opportunities, comfort, hope, direction, assist in finding purpose. Those are powerful statements. Any other comments?
Well, look, this is just, this is not new for me. It's something I've repeated, but I'll say this much. In the South African context and in the global context too, right? You see, the big buzzword is purpose. Like if you find your purpose, you don't need anyone to motivate you because you'll be driven by your own goal, your own GPS, your own compass, right? But here's the problem. If I asked you in the country that we share, and I gather many people may be watching us from other parts of the world, but in South Africa, if I said, what's your purpose, you'd be able to answer that. And if you ask me what's mine, I'd be able to answer that. But if I asked you what's our national purpose, what's our country's purpose, and I can tell you now, we don't know.
Mm-hmm.
We don't know. So as an example, to make it easier for people to understand what I mean, around 1988, the national purpose as a collective of a country, it had to be end apartheid. There was this huge drive that this system is unsustainable. We had to end apartheid. Then come 1994, and of course Mandela was a symbol of it, but the real purpose was to end apartheid. Come 1994, it was nation building. And then come 2004, 2005 upwards, it was all about 2010 World Cup. Everything we ever did as a country, circled around the 2010 World Cup. That was our purpose, or the national purpose, right? But since then, you and I both are in the communications leadership space. We struggle because I don't know. So why am I saying that? Is that as a country, we must discover and agree and adopt a national purpose, number one. And I made the point, if nothing comes out of this national dialogue that just started, if nothing else, if they just agree on a national purpose and drive that point, then we'd be on the right track. So that's point one. But the important one, and this is from a personal point of view, you see, it's one thing having purpose, and it's one thing having the talent and the skills that a person does possess. The question is, how do you align your personal to the national? That means, does your personal purpose align itself to the national purpose? Now, for many people, that's very abstract. And then you bring in like sports people and they get it immediately. So a person like, I'm going back from a rugby Francois Pienaar of 1995 to a Siya Kolisi now, it's very obvious when they win for their country. So they're aligning the personal to the national and they get it. But if I put the same question to 1,000 professionals in the country in different aspects of South African life, and I said, what are you doing? And they'll relate what they're doing and say, okay, that's nice. So you benefit from it, and so does your family and community in a way. But how does your country benefit from it? How aligned are you to the country's purpose? And can you link the two? And the answer at the moment is, will we not, because we don't know what it is. So we link it to some grandiose plan of, nation building, but we don't really get it. But when it finally comes up, with the moment, there's nothing stopping each one of us to be very conscious and conscientious about saying, at the very least, even if we don't have a title, what is our national purpose, to be aware that whatever I can do in my personal space and in my personal purpose, I'm going to align that to the national purpose, like sports people do so well, right? And when we do that as a collective, and we get 1 million people doing that, this is a new country. It will be a new country. And that's what's so absent from us now. So we have brilliant individuals, I believe, that remarkable South Africans, but a lot of it is still in the narrow confines of their spaces or their companies, and they do well. And of course, they pay taxes, so there's benefit for the country from that. I get that. But how are they able to move the nation and shift the needle of an entire nation? That can only happen by linking the personal to the national purpose.
So just finally, then your view as someone who interviews broadly and who connects with leaders broadly, when you look at your definition of successful leadership, collectively speaking, politically and maybe corporate wise, but nationally, collectively, not individually speak. So what I hear you say is individually we've got successes, but collectively, how are we doing then? What do you give us out of 10? 10 being, oh, great leadership collectively, but 0 being pathetic.
Yeah, 10, I think we're a 5. I think we're a 5. We're a mid-table nation. That's if we continue not finding direction, because we've lost direction somewhat, then we would, in sporting terms, we become a relegation club, a relegation nation, right? A relegated nation. If we get our act together, then we start competing for the league title. So we're mid-table right now. And again, I do love using sporting analogies because they're just so easy to understand. When your team is underperforming, you look at your leader, you look at the coach, you look at the trainers, you look at the players, and you look at the strategy, the game plan, and you realize sometimes it's not one thing that needs changes. Sometimes it needs 5 changes. Sometimes it just needs one thing. We are in a position right now where we need change. We need change across the board. The question is, do we have people who are able to plug in when we make those changes? I believe we do. And I'm not talking politically, right? Because I'm not going to comment on who should lead the country. Not at all. I wouldn't do that. But we do need a complete shift in terms of who we are as a people and why are we playing this game? This game of, what I say nation building, or what we as champions South Africa often talk about. We say, our end goal is to achieve champion nation status. And champion nation status would mean, effectively everything checks out. You've got best leadership, you've got best in class education, you've got the best entrepreneurs, you've got the lowest levels of crime, you've got the lowest separation of inequality and poverty, and all the things that are pretty obvious to us, right? But that would define what would be a champion nation. So how do we get there really is dependent on you and I and everybody watching us to say, what action are we going to take? In the same way, when you're watching your sports team perform poorly on the field and say like, hey man, we need to change here. What are we going to do?
Ashraf, yeah, thank you so much, Ashraf Garda. I mean, there's no doubt that we as a nation give us a purpose. The times that we've had purpose, we've surprised the world, and we continue doing that. Our sporting teams, our sporting heroes, and when they maybe lose a little bit of sight of the purpose over a weekend, like we've seen, then they lose. But I don't know if they did. But you've made me think there. I mean, these are things I know. We all know that purpose is so important. But as a nation, we've got example after example where you put a purpose in front of us, be it a crisis or a positive purpose like the World Cup or whatever. We just somehow make it happen, and that's what we need. We need a purpose. Thank you so much, and congratulations for your Successful Leader Award and for giving us some insights here. You can give us a final comment.
I'll say this, as a final thing, I mean, and this is just an aside. So I don't know if you play this game called Paddle, right? But it's a fairly recent game that is a mixture between what you'd think of traditional tennis and traditional squash, where there's glass walls, so you can play like tennis, but hit the ball of the glass wall. So I've been playing in the last 2 years, and I'm pretty close to the action there. I mean, in fact, we have an Instagram account called Paddle News Network that's really grown. Okay, but this is not my point. This is the point. I attended an event at the Wanderers Cricket Ground on the weekend, and these guys, about 7 or 8 of them, from 2 companies, one called 360 Paddle and the other one called Gale Paddle, decided to come together and say, you know what, we're a new country playing paddle. We're only playing for 2-3 years. The world leaders of paddle are Spain and Argentina. All the best players in the world come from those countries. What happens if we get them to play in our country for like 3 days? Now, we're talking of the very best in their space, okay? And these guys had this vision about 6 to 8 months ago. I can tell you, Adrian, at this weekend, 12 of the finest paddle players in the world were in this country. Okay? Now, what am I saying? Why am I even telling you that? Because it shows you that within the groups and group think, when people come together and they're inspired to think bigger than they've ever thought before, and then effect the trajectory to get where they need to do, they deliver. So they have actually done that, and it was phenomenal. So now we know, like the question is, the tournament ends up, and it's like, well, they have it again. Of course, it's so expensive. Who knows whether they'll do it again? And come last night, they put out a post to say 3 of the top 12 that were here, 3 of them are coming back for next year already. Now, we're not talking paddle here. What we're talking about is effective change and dreaming far higher. Because if you want to move from mid-table to a champion nation, then you better think like champions.
Ashraf, thank you so much. It's been an honor to give you the award, and thank you for what you're doing. Continue doing it. The world's just a better place with you there. Thank you.
Thank you. Very kind. And thanks for reminding us, because, you know, when you talk to me today, you in many ways become my consciousness as well, and conscience to say, hold it, man, this is what you're doing. And if in case you've forgotten, Ashraf, let us remind you that this is what you've done. And this is what more you can do. So I go, we'll switch off just now, and I'll say, so what has just happened here? You know, someone of stature and gravitas has acknowledged me as a leader in my space and encouraged me to link my leadership to the leadership of a country. And that's a big responsibility, because I'll tell you what, that South African flag is a beautiful flag, and it resembles and it reflects beautiful things. And I want to be standing alongside it whenever we celebrate.
And you are, and you're just getting others to do the same. Thank you so much.